Hello, my name is Shane Larango, and I love stories. Whether I write them, live them, perform them, listen to them, or talk about them, I was born for storytelling. Today, I want to welcome my friend, story lady Jane Terrell. I first met her at the Dallas Storytelling Guild, and she had this amazing, beautiful poetry story that she put forth. And so it was rhyming. It's like a poetry slam kind of moment. And it was so impactful, so powerful, so beautiful, so amazing. And since that time, I have got to witness her tell stories about different topics in different genres and in different places. And I am so happy to hang out with her in the storytelling world of Dallas and the surrounding areas. So welcome, Story Lady Jane.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, Miss beautiful, beautiful Shane Larango. And I remember the meeting very well, Shane, and I remember that amazing storytellerish drawl that you had as you practiced your story that you were getting ready to perform at the Tejas Storytelling Festival that was imminent at that time. And I remember thinking, yes, this lady's a natural. And the Guild is just always so welcoming to me. And it was definitely a moment. Just felt so welcomed by everybody and embraced myself as a person and myself as an artist. I'm very, very happy to be here to do an interview with you today. And I've told you privately, so I want to say publicly that not only were you made for storytelling, you actually were also made for this particular platform of interviewing storytellers, because and going live and things like that. It's just you're so natural with it, and I really appreciate this opportunity, Shane. Truly, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you. Your words are very special to me, and they mean a lot. And I do get nervous. That's the weird thing too, is like even here, completely alone, just me and you on thing, and I'm like, oh, I hope I don't mess this up. So, but it's a lot of fun. That's the joy about the thing I get from it, is that I am having so much fun, and I have so much fun hearing other people's perspectives about storytelling and why they tell the stories they tell and why they got into storytelling. So, and it's valuable stuff for me. So this is definitely, this technology format works so well, especially when we're in isolation. So
absolutely.
it's
And of
good
course, we know that is the definition of courage, right? Is to feel that fear and then do it anyways. And so I guess I haven't quite found my courage to do the live thing just yet. So just having you, I feel like you're holding my hand right now with it. So thank you, Shane, for holding my hand. I'm reach out my
You got it, girl. Like, where's the camera? it's like I will hold your hand virtually. Yeah. And that's the fun thing too, is about getting on stage. It was like, I had my cousin one time, the first time that I did a storytelling performance without rehearsal, prep, all that kind of stuff. My cousin came on stage with me, and I told him, I said, you are being the Naomi to my Winona Judd. And people who know country music will understand that reference. But it was like somebody doing it with me helped me to be able to break through this whatever barrier that I had set up for myself. So
it's just really strange, because like I don't have so much nervousness about doing live stuff. I mean, as in live shows. But going live on Facebook, I don't know what that is. It's just some sort of roadblock. So anyways, hopefully I can get over that soon.
Yeah, there's something about it. I'm with you too. So, well, tell me, why do you tell stories?
Well, you know what? There's a story in there somewhere, Shane. There is, about why I started to tell stories. I think, well, first of all, we know that stories and storytelling is everywhere, you know. I was thinking about that earlier. I was like, stories, like everything's a story to me. Like I was thinking, like, I put these earrings on today. There's a story in how I came about, why I chose these earrings. This chair I'm sitting on, I know you can't see it, but it's like this chair that I take to every performance. Like, and I've called it my flat Stanley. It's almost like it goes everywhere, and I take pictures with it, and we've got pictures of it at Moody Performance Hall, just the chair by itself on stage. And it's just so like storytellerish, everything about me. So why do I tell stories? Specifically, how I got into the actual genre of storytelling. Well, you know, you have to go, it started off as a bit of a tragedy, but, you know, out of tragedy, we know comes triumph, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so about 20 years ago, I got divorced. And during my marriage to my first husband, we joined a church, a Baptist church, and it had a very, very active arts program. And I was fortunate and blessed, so truly blessed, to be able to direct the plays with the children, to produce them and direct them. And it was an honor that was bestowed upon me by the youth director. Her name's China Wright, who I truly, truly love that lady. She gave me such a wonderful opportunity, and working with the children just became my passion. And well, when we got divorced, because it was his family church, you know, he kind of got the church, you know, in the divorce, he got the church, and it just became like impossible for me to have that creative outlet. Well, just going back just a little bit, like when I was growing up in school, I was very, very active in the school plays and all of these other artsy-fartsy, as I call it, artsy-fartsy things that I did. But this woke up, this experience with these children in this church just woke up that side of me, I found. And it was so impactful to my life. And then when I didn't have that anymore, I was like, oh, darn, what am I going to do now? Like, there's not really any churches around here that have that same type of arts program thing going. So I racked my brains. I was going online and I was searching, and I somehow stumbled across storytelling. And there was a story. It was a bare bones story about these blue people and these green people. And it just really struck me, you know, it interested me so much that I played around with it, and I adapted it and enhanced it, made it my own, so to speak, and practiced it and practiced it and practiced it. And I was like, okay, this is it. I felt those creative juices again in that process. It kind of filled a gap. It filled that gap for me that I was really missing this other creative outlet that I had. So I'm like, well, where can I don't even know if it was any good or not. So funny thing is, I walked into did a walk-in at the Dallas Storytelling Guild. So
Mm-hmm.
I researched, storytelling in Dallas, Dallas Storytelling Guild popped up, and I just walked in one time and sat down and told the story. And it kind of, I guess, and that's how the fun got started. I don't know.
Well, so
But it
you're
came
pretty
out of,
relatively new to the art of
yeah,
storytelling or professional storytelling,
yes, yes,
which
I am.
kind of like, I don't know your background. We just met within the past couple
Yeah,
of years. So
yeah.
that's new to me too, because outstanding. You're a natural. You're amazing.
Thank you
So,
so much. It did feel natural to me,
mm-hmm,
and of course, you know, I've always been a social justice person. So
mm,
this gave me the ability to talk to those things that meant something to me: racism, people with disabilities, immigrants, all of those kind of diversity type issues that I'm truly interested in. And it
yeah.
gave me the opportunity to just, you know, I would find things and I would write things. You know, it was just an opportunity that I had that just came out of a need, really. So
And
I was,
so, like, in describing yourself as a storyteller, like, what genre do you prefer, like venues, that kind of thing? Like, who do you like to tell stories to, and where?
yes, and it's another thing. Like, I realized very quickly that storytelling did have so many different genres in within that genre.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, telling for children, which I do. You've got telling true life stories, which I do. You've got biblical storytelling, which I do. You've got spoken word, which I do. I do all of those things, and it's really just a matter of what grabs me.
Mm.
And obviously, you have to know your audience a little bit. You don't go into a church, say, for instance, and start saying certain stories that might be better left to another crowd. Maybe you have to. So
You
obviously I
do.
have a little bit of a repertoire. I don't have a very large repertoire of stories like a lot of you guys. I know that have been in the business for such a long time, but I do have my favorites, and I have like a few things that are very appropriate for when I do go to churches. I've got some historical things now which are appropriate, like if I'm going to say, the Dallas Heritage Village or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just love it all. It's just a matter of what grabs me. But it is very much, I do tend to always want to make it about a social justice issue, though. That's kind of my brand, I think, as a storyteller.
Yeah, I love that. Now, do you have any storyteller mentors, or are you still new enough that you don't really follow a path?
Oh no, I've got my favorites, and I
Yeah.
love all storytellers. First of all, like I've always described, when I'm among a lot of different storytellers, I feel very much like I'm among my people, because they are so diverse, and I'm all about diversity. So like I'm like my people, because they're so different, so quirky, and I absolutely love that. But my mentors, first of all, Peggy Heimlich Richardson. She has been the most incredibly encourager. She's such an incredible encourager and mentor to me. She has given me opportunities that probably are difficult to come across for somebody who is as new as myself. And I think I've said this to you before. Some might say, and the thought has crossed my mind, that the storytelling community can be a little bit of a closed shop sometimes. Like, I'm a little bit wet behind the ears, right? As far as in terms of how long I've been doing this, relatively. But she never treated me like that. She always said, no, I want to give you the opportunity to do this and to do that. And she believes in me, and I can tell, and it really rubs off on me. She's so wonderful. She's such a wonderful storyteller herself.
Very
Also,
generous, I would add.
and so incredibly intelligent. I know you've done an interview with her as well. I'm going to get ready. When I post my interview, hers is going to be also in the links, and anybody else I know, Laura Packer and anybody else, I'll be promoting this for sure. But there's Peggy, and there is, of course, the incredible Elizabeth Ellis. What can I say? Generous. I remember meeting her for the first time, and it was at a house storytelling concert with the wonderful Noah Baum and in Dallas, and I attended. Nobody knew me from Adam, right? But I had seen all about Elizabeth Ellis, and in my research, I had seen some of her stories online, and like, oh my goodness. But anyway, so we go in there, we sit down, and there's this one like armchair, this beautiful chair sitting in the corner, and it's got a, reserved sign on it. And I'm like, oh, I wonder who that's reserved for, right? So next thing, in comes Elizabeth, and it was like she was just like this vision. She came in and sat down, and I'm like, oh, Elizabeth Ellis is here. Like I just did this whole fangirl thing, which I never did, but but I really felt like, oh my goodness, I'm going to make sure I speak to her. So I did. When they took a little break, I went up and I went all Google. I'm such a fan. I saw blah, 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 blah. So she looks at me just all like calm and everything. She said, people are so kind to me. How she does that voice. And so I said to her, I'm like, oh, can you mentor me, please? And she said, yes. She gives me her phone number and everything. Anyways, she's so wonderful. And I can't begin to tell you. And you know what? I don't have to tell you because I know you know. I know
Yeah,
you know.
I do.
But for everybody
Yeah.
else's benefit,
Yeah, she is an amazing, amazing presence, and I'm in awe of just almost the effortlessness that
yes.
she comes to what she's doing, and the grace. Yeah, yeah, I'm a
And
fangirl
the
too.
knowledge, the back knowledge is so incredible. I've actually attended like a 3-day workshop with her.
Hmm.
And she called me. She calls me usually before the Tejas Storytelling Festival because, you know, she's trying to corral people to do volunteer stuff and such for the festival. So she called me this last time, and unfortunately I was unable to go. And I was explaining to her that I wasn't going to be able to attend this year because, you know, of a health situation I'd had with my husband this year.
Yes.
So she tells me, when we get through with this festival, I'm going to come over there and sit and tell stories to your husband for you. And I was like, really? Well, let me just say it didn't materialize because of COVID-19, which is perfectly
Hmm.
understandable. But just the fact that she wanted to do that,
Hmm.
it speaks volumes. And she's very serious. And I know if it hadn't been for COVID-19, she would have been here.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And stories, yeah, how valuable stories are in every platform, in every opportunity, and especially when someone's recovering.
yes.
That's amazing. Well, where do you find the stories that you want to tell, and how do you know that they're right for you, and make them your own?
Yes. Well, sometimes I go looking, and sometimes apparently they come looking for me and they find me. Uh, and I sometimes I'm given an opportunity to perform. I'm invited, and there's maybe a specific theme.
Mhm.
For instance, I did a birthday party I think it was about a year ago, and it was for children, but it was with the, you know, when they had the whole Wakanda thing, and they wanted Black Panther theme. So I went specifically looking for African themed stories, and I came across the Anansi, the Spider series,
Right.
and picked one of my favorites of that, and performed that along with some other things that I already do, and put together a little set there. Sometimes it's just something strikes me, or I'll see something online. I came across a story about the peace truce, the Christmas Eve peace truce in 1914, and an incredible artist called Alex Guiver, who I immediately fangirled out about because he's just absolutely amazing. He writes and performs. But this particular story, just the fact that, you know, we fight. These people were literally at war in the trenches.
Mhm.
And on Christmas Eve, they decided they didn't want to fight anymore. So they didn't. They all just decided to have one great big celebration together on the battlefield with dead bodies all around, and played football and did all these wonderful things. And that just grabbed me, and I had to perform it. So I learned it verbatim and practiced and practiced and practiced. It was very long and difficult to learn, but I was like, something that just inspired me so much and really touched me. I had to do that. And
Well,
sometimes I'll write things myself. You know,
mhm.
I
Well, before
came.
you go on, I want to tell you that I grew up with that story, that my daddy told that story, and
Wow,
talked
really?
about that. Yes, he was in the Air Force, but he was very, I don't even know how to speak for him, but yeah, it was very important for him. He realized that the people usually in the trenches had
Yeah.
nothing against each other.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and
Yes.
that was one of the things like he advocated for, and he was, like economic justice and understanding that there's people that were fighting wars for not these reasons that they tell us, but a lot of times they're
Absolutely.
financial or power struggles and things, and they're using, usually the poorer people as pawns in that. And so he
That
was,
word pawn, yes,
yeah.
yes.
So I had a lot of stories, but yeah, I was familiar with that story. So when you told it, it was just that, but the art of the story that you told was very, like nuanced and beautiful, and it was performance worthy kind of thing. But I
Thank you.
knew that story. So when you're studying a long piece like that and you want to get it right,
Yeah.
because it's from a literary work, what are some of the techniques that you use to practice to get that to where you want it to be?
It, it's it's as simple as it is difficult. It's really for me about living with it and repetition.
Mm,
I, as an artist, and I believe that most artists will connect with what I'm about to say here, but I truly believe that uh, now some people can ad lib. I'm not one of those, but I'll just say that, okay? I don't ad lib. But what I do is I practice it so much that it looks natural.
mm, mm-hmm.
I over and over and over and over and over and over again. And what I find is that the more I do that, the more nuanced it becomes, the more my own it becomes, because I actually told it completely different to the way Alex told that story.
Mm,
He has it online. His pace and his accent, he's got a very thick British accent, but I know I've got one, but it's not as thick anymore. But I slowed it all down. I'm all into the facial expressions and all of those kind of things. But I find that the more I practice something, the more I tell it, the more nuanced, the more story Lady Jane it becomes. Because there's just certain things I'll go, oh, that right there. The more I do it, uh, the more I become that story. I can't really explain it better than that.
mm-hmm.
So I will live with a story for quite some time. And as time goes on, it really gets better and better and better. But I do practice and practice and practice. And they say practice makes perfect, right? So I
Yes.
truly believe that. I do.
Well, and I will tell you this, Jane, because I'm fairly new too, and that's something that makes me like be able to be on stage is to have it so rehearsed. But I'm getting into a more comfortable thing where I can just tell the story. And
Yes.
so that's it. I will say that may come with
With
practice and
I agree.
experience and things. It's very exciting for me. Still makes me nervous to like not have something totally rehearsed,
You're
but
so
just
natural at it. It's you're very natural with that. I envy that part about you actually. And you're right. It might just be, and it might be a confidence factor because I can get in my head a little bit, honestly.
mm-hmm,
And if
yeah,
I get in my head while I'm trying to do something that's not very rehearsed, I can freeze.
yeah,
Not freeze completely, but I'll say flub. I can flub. And
mm-hmm.
I guess I'm a bit of a perfectionist there. I don't like the flubs. I don't like the and that might be going back as well to my Toastmaster time when literally
Definitely.
they have a little buzzer or a little bell. When you say like this, they go ding 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 ding. Just snap out of that. None of
It's
that.
like aversion therapy. It's like, ah.
Yeah, yeah. It's so
Well, is
funny.
there a story that you do have in your repertoire or like that you've found that you haven't put together yet that you really look for the opportunity to tell?
That I haven't put together yet.
Yeah, either one, like one you already have or one that you've kind of just like saw and you're like, that's going to be the next one kind of thing.
Well, I have I have on my phone and in various notebooks around the house. I'm sure you do too. I have little bits of things that have been started to be written. One thing that I have written, though, is actually finished, is what I intend to turn into a children's book. It's called Grumpy Grampy. And Grumpy Grampy is all about a granddad who is really, although I never say it, but he's really in the beginning stages of dementia in this
Mm,
story. And he's forgetful and he's
mm,
grumpy. And he doesn't he's not all that warm and fuzzy with his grandson when he comes to visit. So what happens is, and this is true for people with dementia, when faced with things like music from back in the day and old pictures and just hugs and a little bit of love, Grumpy Grampy, he's not really grumpy anymore that day, you know. So really it's able to, the child is able to have these moments with his grandfather that he can remember. And so it's all about that. Of course, I tell it all in my storyteller-ish thing, and I've written it, and I'm actually working on having it illustrated as well. So hopefully we can get to that soon. But
that sounds amazing.
I want to be able to tell it as well to, you know, some of the children, and especially like if there are children that are experiencing, a lot of us now do have aged grandparents and parents, and there is an awful lot of that in various stages. But I just know that from my time in volunteering, I volunteered for some work with some people with dementia at one of my friends' nursing homes. And initially I went in there as a storyteller, and I started to tell this story about these blue people and these green people that I truly love. It's really my signature story. And the lady looked at me and said, "What green people are you talking about? I never heard about no green people." Green people. She just wasn't going to have it. She just kept interrupting me every time I talked about some green people. She wasn't having about no green people. So I had to think fast on my feet. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? So I just started to pull up my phone, and I pulled up some Motown tunes, and we started having, I said, "Well, let's just have a sing-along then." She said, "Okay." So I've pulled up some, and oh my goodness, when you put on the right song, like literally some of those beautiful people were just jumping up out of their seats. A little old man started dancing with a little old lady, and I was like, wow. You know, so that's kind of what that sparked that idea for the story that I wrote about Grumpy Grampy. So that's the story that I look forward to bringing, hopefully, to some platform somewhere.
That sounds amazing.
Have the book to accompany it too, hopefully, if we can get the illustrations done. So, yeah. But there's a story about that too. There's a story about everything, isn't there, Shay?
There is. There is. And that was the fun thing too, is like we also and I was trying to woo you at some point to coming to Backyard Story Night, the Dallas edition that we were doing at Wild Detectives in the Bishop Arts neighborhoods of Oak Cliff. And like, because that's all personal stories. And yeah, it was so much fun. I miss that so much.
Well, I hope that you will ask me again. I really do. I know that it didn't quite materialize, and now of course COVID-19 has thrown a monkey wrench into all of that.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, we should, I don't know if we haven't like thought about doing it online or anything, but it was fun to be in community. It was just amazing to be in community. And so that is different now. But in what do you see, what kind of stories do you see coming out based on what's happening in the US and globally right now in 2020?
Yeah. Yes. Well, obviously, I mean, what I do fits right into that. When I say about diversity, I do see that the whole genre of social justice and those types of stories and that type of storytelling is important. And I see that, as a matter of fact, I was at my friend's house the other day, and she quoted somebody, and I can't unfortunately recall who the quote is attributed to, but it basically said that you're not an artist unless you're speaking to the current times. You know, that basically that is the definition of an artist. An artist speaks to whatever's going on in the world right now. And you know, it could be whatever's going on in your own personal world, obviously, but obviously there's a bigger picture thing going on right now globally. Like you said, it is a global thing that we're coming together to really see who we are.
Yes.
To say, who am I? you have to. So as an artist, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be essentially saying where we stand in this whole scenario, like what is our thoughts about it, and that's going to come out in our art, and is coming out in our art.
Well, you also had this unique opportunity, I think, as a storyteller, that y'all got to do a big story thing and at the Moody Theater. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was called, but
Moody
it was
performance.
the
Yes.
Moody Performance Hall.
Yes.
Yes, the Moody Performance Hall. I was like, but it was huge because it was specifically talking about racism in Dallas.
Yes.
And it was at a downtown arts district performance place, and y'all did storytelling.
Yes.
Personal storytelling, and that was so impactful. I'm so grateful I got the opportunity to see that and to see you perform in that. Would you talk a little bit about that experience?
Absolutely. It was transformative. That's the word that I used. For me personally, it was a transformative experience. The title was called From Freedmanstown to Botham Jean. And of course, in case anybody doesn't know, although I don't know who wouldn't know about the story of Botham Jean. Botham Jean, of course, was the young, gifted man who was sitting in his own living room eating a bowl of ice cream when a policewoman came in to his home. Apparently she lived one story up and thought it was her home, saw him there and immediately shot him dead. So, of course, that is an issue that we're having. That is the crux of the issue. That is the whole Black Lives Matter.
And Freedmanstown was an area of Dallas that existed, and then it got taken over and whitewashed, so to speak.
Most definitely. And there's also, if you go to the African American Museum in Dallas, you'll see a lot of artifacts from Freedmanstown. You'll see a grave, which is not actually a grave, but it's dirt from that area, and broken pottery, which was of the time they would put broken pottery all amongst the graves. And there's broken pottery all in it, this one art exhibition. And you know, a lot of things about history of Freedmanstown, and it tells you about how the cemetery where all of the African Americans were buried, or are buried still, was actually paved over for certain highways. And I mean, it's just horrible what happened in that area. It's terrible. So yeah, this whole topic, I got to participate, and it's really funny how I got to be part of it. Peggy had put out a call, Peggy Heimlich Richardson, as part of her role with the Dallas Storytelling Guild, had put out a role and said, hey, you know, they have an emergency. They're looking for storytellers for this show that's coming up. So she put out just a blast to the guild. And I had seen it before. Somebody had told me about it. And I was like, yeah. And I just didn't do anything about it. I procrastinated, which I do sometimes. So when she put that out, for some reason, I picked up the phone and just called the producer of the show. And I said, you know, that topic you're talking about, that's what I do. That's what I do.
Well, and Jane, I am so glad that you picked up the phone, because I can't imagine that without your voice in it. So it's like, what do you mean you didn't answer the first call? It took you 2 calls to do that?
I just don't know what happened. But anyways, I'm outing myself here. I picked up the phone, I called Nicole, and I said, you want me in this show. This is what I do. She goes, well, you know what? Write me a story and send it tonight. So I was like, oh my gosh, talk about a deadline, right?
Right.
So I wrote out my story and I sent it to her. I went to sleep. It took me till like about 3 o'clock in the morning. I went to sleep, woke up about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I see an email from her like, yep, we want you. be here tonight for rehearsal. And I was like, oh my gosh, it just happened like that. Come to find out, the show had already been cast, but somebody had dropped out because actually they wanted a voice from a white person who maybe had overcome racism. They wanted a white male. That's what it was. They wanted a white.
Right.
So, and they couldn't find one. They had one person, but apparently his family had said that they were going to disown him if he participated.
I will tell you, that's what I missed from that show was I was like, where is a white man? Where is a white man? And it
tried
just,
so hard.
yes. Oh my gosh, that blew my mind. I'm so glad to know this story because that was what I thought was missing.
They were going to take him out the wheel and everything if he participated in this show. So anyway, he dropped out. And so they decided that me giving a voice of, say, somebody who's coming from overseas, that would be, you know, a nice addition to the show. It was last minute. God works like that for me sometimes. He'll just like slide me into something. And that was so incredible, that whole experience. I just can't begin to tell you how it touched me. It touched a lot of people. We didn't just do Moody Performance Hall, by the way. We took it touring around the Dallas libraries in their black box theaters afterwards.
Oh, good.
We actually performed it 5 more times after that. We performed it 6 times total.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't think I realized that either. Oh, man.
I loved it. It was amazing, truly. And it also woke me up to the whole thing about telling my true life stories. And I realized that not only are people interested to hear a little bit about that, but I found my funny in that a little bit as well. I was able to crack a couple of jokes and I got some laughs, and it just kind of shocked me. I was like, oh, really? Sometimes it's funny because sometimes people will laugh where you don't think they'll laugh.
I know.
You know? You think, okay, you say something and they laugh, you go, oh, okay. You get a laugh sometimes the places you don't realize, you know.
Yeah, I have experienced that before with storytelling, and I'm always like, I was like, or they'll think that part's really exaggerated or something. You're like, nope. It's like, yeah. Oh, well, what ways do you see storytelling changing, in either for yourself or for the world, or you know, how are stories, because a lot of people, and I'm clarifying my question that you may understand, but a lot of people don't understand the power that storytelling has.
Yes. Well, of course, we're doing it right now, aren't we? I mean, COVID-19 has forced this whole shift to go online with most everything at the moment. And I believe that because an awful lot of online storytelling shows, I've been invited to several of them all over the world to participate. And I think that that will stay. It was somewhat, people were doing it somewhat prior to COVID-19, but now it's like all over the place. Like I literally just joined a group about online storytelling shows. I think you're in it as well.
Oh, good. I was going to say, you might need to tell me because I want to make sure I'm in it.
I'll double check. But because they let you post your online storytelling, you know, kind of post it so people will know about it and advertise it. So I think that trend will stay. I do. Well, personally, I think I touched about this before. I think what I would like, a change I would like to see, I think that storytelling has a bit of a PR problem, honestly. I would like to see somebody addressing that. Maybe that would be us or something, I don't know. But I think
Let's do it.
Yeah, I think it's got a PR problem. I do, because I was saying to you, remember I was saying that if you say I'm a comedian and you stand up there and you tell a funny story, that you get more respect, you get more money, you get more bookings than if you say I'm a storyteller. Because I found that whenever I say I'm a storyteller, people literally don't know what I'm talking about. They think, they go, oh, okay, well, then you do reading, right? They think that I sit down with the children all around my feet, and I
Like,
read to them.
like a mother goose or something. Yeah.
And I do that. I like that. That's great.
Yeah.
We do that. But we're far more than that. It's multifaceted. And so, again, I do believe that there is a PR problem with storytelling in terms of how we're received out there in the world and the
Yeah.
value that's placed upon what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically what you were saying about it being powerful, transformative, informative, educational, and inspirational, all of those things. So I don't know exactly, I'm just kind of throwing that out there as my thought process. I don't know how that could be fixed or anything, but I think I'm going to have to start thinking about that, because that thought keeps popping into my head that we have a PR problem.
I would love to talk to you more about that too, because I do, when I tell people like I'm a storyteller, they're like, oh, you tell bedtime story, like I was like, I'm telling you, like, you don't understand the power. And when you think about it, like everything is a story, right? The movies, the newspapers, and all of that kind of stuff, but those are done with this huge lock of gatekeepers. And so when we take it to a grassroots movement and do storytelling for social justice, and which was a funny thing too, because I tried to pitch that to do like as a show for Wild Detectives, and I didn't know how to pitch it, but I wanted a night to do like talk to people how to use storytelling to tell their personal stories in with the goal of informing people who've never had that experience to understand what people are talking about when they talk about social justice. And like, if you've never had that experience, you have to open yourself up to live through someone else's experience so that you can be an advocate.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm approached all the time by people wanting to do what I do, which is wonderful. I'm very flattered about that. I do find that some people are inspired to say, "Oh, I would like to do that. How do you do that? How do you get into that? What do I do?"
So what advice do you give them?
I do. First of all, if somebody's like shy to perform, one resource that's out there's an excellent resource, is the Toastmasters organization, which I was part of and very entrenched in for some time. And they will develop the art of telling for you, that they will allow you to tell something in an environment that is totally non-judgmental. Like, obviously they'll give you a ding if you do the R's and the ums and everything like that.
Yeah.
But it's a very warm environment, and it's a perfect training ground for storytellers. But I also recommend the guilds, the local guilds. My favorite, and this is nothing against any of the other guilds, but my favorite is the Dallas Storytelling Guild. And I'll tell you why specifically. And this is what I found. When I go to that guild, like it's full of the most wonderfully intellectual individuals who like truly listen to your story and can dissect it, and they can give you some advice that is just like, you could literally go and pay for that advice that they give you. It's also a warm environment. Once again, it's very welcoming, it's very non-judgmental. But the feedback that I've gotten from that, being in that guild, from day one, that day when I walked in there, and I remember I told a story, and it was Peggy actually that said it. She told me about the art of a pregnant pause. And there's a part in my story that to this day, when I tell that story, I always do that pregnant pause, and I give it. It's a timing thing, though. You can't do it too long. You can't do it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool. I use it in Moody Performance Hall, like the pacing, but that pause part, that was a valuable little bit of information that really helped me. So I just wanted to give you a specific example of how it helped develop me as a storyteller. So I would recommend that you go, even if you don't participate initially, you can go to these guild meetings as a story listener. It's perfectly fine. Nobody's going to be like making you do anything. Same with the Toastmasters organization. And just get with people who are doing it. It's a very, very warm, generous community in terms of, giving advice and being loving towards people. It really is.
Well, that was my experience too with the Dallas Storytelling Guild when I went I actually went one time, and it's funny because nobody remembers me being there, because I sat there and was like I just didn't know what was going on. And the second time, I couldn't not ask. And I was like, how do you tell a story? And that was my question. And it was there was a disconnect because I was jumping over hurdles that they weren't even aware about, but we got to it. They were patient and trying to figure out what are you asking? I mean, it's it was Jean and Peggy who held my hand in a sense and got me to that point where I could go from sitting around talking to my friends and telling stories and entertaining and saying things to actually getting on stage, which is a very different dynamic. But yes, lots of love and support. And I will tell you, if I tell a story in front of Tim Couch that I'm working on, that
amazing.
Man always has something that ups my story.
Yes.
By 90%. I'm like, oh, that's it. That's the
intellectuals, college professors, journalists, just people
so
that
generous.
are there.
Yeah, generous.
That is just that's our little secret. Let's not tell everybody, because everybody will be showing up to the guild and we won't have no time for. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody go join the Dallas Storytelling Guild. It's really very, very worthwhile.
Yeah, and I do, and there is that moment where you're like, oh, this is my intimate little treasure, but you realize that you've got to give that treasure to the next group, to the next generation, to the next people who want to come forward, to the next people that've got something to say, because that's so important, our voices and the stories that we have to tell. So is there other places that you would recommend?
Oh, yes. Just something came to mind. For the children, like here in Cedar Hill, you've got Trafine Hickman. She runs a storytelling workshop, for lack of a better word, at the Cedar Hill Library, which I've had an opportunity to go and hang out with them a few times. And she's so wonderful with the children. She really is. But if you want your kiddies to get involved, Tony Simmons actually, I think, initiated it. I think she ran it for quite some time, but then when she retired, Trafine has stepped in and taken over. But the good thing is, of course, your children, are developed in the art of storytelling and then given opportunities to perform places, such as they take them every year to the Dallas Storytelling Festival, Tejas Storytelling Festival. And give them an opportunity to perform in front of, an audience. And they're good. Some of them are really good. If you want to get your kids involved, I recommend, if you're anywhere close to Cedar Hill, bring them on. It's a really good group of kids too. And,
Well, what's a memory that you have of the Texas Storytelling Festival that's put on by the Tejas Storytelling Association?
Tejas. So thank you for getting that correct for me. Well, I did get to perform there actually in 2019 in their Sacred Tales concert, and I did a biblical storytelling it's about the Passion of Jesus Christ. And I was able to perform that as well as a song that I wrote called Riddled in My Soul. It's more of a spoken wordy, storytelling-ish type of song though. And so that was incredible because it was only the second time I'd ever been to the festival. So to get up on the big stage, to have that opportunity, again, that was because of Peggy. Peggy puts that whole thing together. So she said, come on, yeah, we got a place for you. And that was just such a wonderful, wonderful thing, that opportunity that she gave me. But the first time I went, the year before that, 2018, I went with Laka Bridges. Laka was doing something for the children that year, and she was doing some presenting and some things. And so I went in support of her, and we hung out and we shared a hotel room together and such. And I met so many wonderful, wonderful storytellers. I can't begin to say. We had workshops. I think it was Adam Booth was there that year.
Yes.
And he's masterful in what he does and how he tells. And I remember I took a workshop with him, and he was talking about how storytelling and cinematography combine, and how, for instance, if you look at a movie, you'll see it from the perspective, maybe you'll have a wide shot, and then all of a sudden something will happen and it will come in really close, really close, really close, really close. And he's telling, and he does that when he told me that, and then I listened to him tell, I realized he's doing it in his stories. He'll tell the story from a wide perspective, and then all of a sudden in his stories, now bear in mind, a story is like cinematography, it's not highly produced, so it's all stripped down, and he has to do it all with his words, that describing something from far away and then going in and describing something from close up. So he might be cooking and now he's describing, like initially he's describing the room, then next minute he's talking about, the grease spattering, and it's just, he uses cinematography in the word form to describe something. And it, again, such a powerful moment, such a wonderful thing for me to learn. And I didn't even have to pay anything for that. Like you could pay hundreds of dollars to get that kind of information. So everybody
and it was
does
all about crafting how people use different things to craft their stories, and use those elements, and like the pause and the focus and directing for that. So that's amazing. I got to meet Laka that year too, so I have her on my list to interview as well. So
she's a little bundle of joy.
Yes, lots of energy and so delightful. Oh my goodness, such a presence. Well, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to tell about yourself or about your storytelling?
Is there anything you haven't asked me?
Yeah, I call this my Mind Planets question.
I'm just such an open book. Honestly, I think sometimes I can overshare. So, I just, like I said to you before, ask me anything, because I don't think so, Shane. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that you haven't asked me. You know exactly, how I've gotten into storytelling, why I do storytelling, what I want to do next, who has influenced me, what has influenced me. I just want to get better. I guess what I want to do, I think this is one thing that I have been wanting to do with my storytelling, is to not necessarily wait for people to ask me to come to tell, but to create my own opportunities to tell, which I think is important for storytellers to do. Because really, we have to be innovative. There's only so many things that, people are going to invite people. There's a lot of us, and we're a growing community. So I want to do that. And of course, I had started to do that. I had an unfortunate situation, which a lot of people know, with my husband's health situation. It was a mad crisis that happened in October, which kind of threw a lot of cogs in the wheel, threw a monkey wrench in it, a lot of the stuff that I had planned. But we're getting back now, and we're getting the creative juices going again. And I think the whole online thing, that definitely is something that I want to explore more, and do some live telling and live things, take a page out of your book. But so that's something I really wanted to say. I love to collaborate. I'm a huge collaborator. I love that. And I like to collaborate, not just across, I like to collaborate across race lines, across geographical lines. I like to collaborate across genres. I love mixed media things, like if you put, say, a singer with a storyteller or anything like that. I love all of that. And the more the merrier. That's really what I wanted to say there, I think, Shane.
Well, I really do appreciate you coming on and collaborating with me today, because it's hard to have an interview if you're alone. So.
Oh, that is true. It takes two. It takes two.
It takes two. Now, the last question that I have for everyone is, what storyteller do you think that I should ask to interview next, and why?
Well, I have to nominate the incredible Dr. Jokey McElroy. Dr. Jokey, you need to do this. You need to do this. She is a 90-something-year-old. I hope she doesn't mind. I don't think she minds me saying this. 90-something-year-old queen. And she is an African-American historian, well documented. And she has so much to say about the current issue. She always has that. That's just, it's not like she just started doing this because of, Black Lives Matter. No, this is her thing that she's been doing. As a matter of fact, she's a college professor. Obviously she's retired now, but she's a master storyteller, but she has a lot of information. She's a lot of things to say. She's been on TV recently talking about Black Lives Matter. She would be a great one for you to interview for this series right here.
Yeah. And I got to be introduced to her at your performance, and watch her and listen to her on stage and everything. But yeah, I was very much looking forward to you making that introduction. So
if there's any way that I can facilitate that, I certainly will. She's very, very open and warm, and I will make that introduction for sure.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming and talking with me today. And I just really appreciate your spirit. I really appreciate your enthusiasm and your smile and your generosity as well.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. Absolutely. My pleasure.
So this is Shane Larango, and this is Storyteller Stories. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.